Playoff season is in full swing, and we got all the coverage you need, plus a final look at a select group of seniors in an epic win over a WDA rival. So happy Wednesday to you guys on the 26th of February. Thank you for joining in on the 28th episode of the Minot Sports Podcast, a production of KMSU TV and Radio, sponsored by Joshua Strong Photography and MSU Red and Green. As I mentioned at the beginning, playoff season is indeed underway. There is a lot going on, a lot from many different teams in action from the Minot sports community. So we have a lot to cover on this one, and that's basically the reason why it's playoff season. Get hype, ladies and gentlemen. But before I get into that, let's take some time to uncover what happened last night. Over at the Magician's Lair, we had Minot High basketball versus the Century Patriots. And these two teams have had quite some battles in the past, especially a few times meeting up in some state championship games when Minot High went on a three-peat back in the glory days. This one specifically, just a regular season game, the last one to be played for both teams. And so over at MCC, it was senior night, as is all other final home regular season games, with some exceptions as well. So they held a ceremony for the seniors. To all of you guys that are graduating this year, let me just list off the names real quick. We have student manager Matthew Westerang. Sorry if I mispronounce it. Cheerleaders Part 2, Siani Alsadon, Carly Johnson, and Jaslyn Short. And the players, Johnny Butts, Cole Browen, Tucker Olson, Jackson Gunville, Caden Johnson, Derry Lentz, and Easton Larson. As always, guys, thank you for all that you do. As for the result, the guys played like it was their last home game. And I say that because Magicians basketball takes the win over Century by a score of 61-48. Also, congrats to Jackson Gunville for breaking Minot's single-season three-point record. Jackson, keep it up. Nice job. This one, I said yesterday, was specifically important because both teams are close to each other in the standings, and that there are some other teams competing with Minot for higher seeding in the West, specifically Mandan. And this is what Minot needed. The boys worked for this. And with the win over Century, they now clinch the third seed heading into the West Region Tournament, set to be held in Bismarck next week. So a third seed, a higher position in the division, with only Jamestown and Bismarck High ahead of Minot. Minot right now is sitting nicely. So great season, boys. Keep up the great work. This was a great finish for them in the season. In a tough division like the West this year, it was important that Minot High finished in the upper end of the standings. And even if they weren't the top or second best, they can still be a force to be reckoned with. They will now go on to prepare for West Region tourney action throughout the next week here. And then, for the girls' side, the Majets having a bounce-back season as a team. They roll into Bismarck Century in Bismarck to face off with the Patriots, who, for the girls, when it comes to the standings, Bismarck Century is up there. So this was going to be a tough challenge for Minot, and unfortunately, they did not get the win. It was 70-52. Bismarck Century takes it in that one. Century concludes a dominant season, while Minot, the Majets, finish 10-10, but there's nothing to fret about this one, as something important has risen about this past week. The Majets, so they finished, as I said, 10-10 in the standings. Here's the kicker. There's going to be 3 play-in games to complete the bracket for the West Region Tournament for the girls' side of basketball. Minot was just so happened to be selected to a West Region play-in game scheduled for tomorrow at 6 o'clock versus the Turtle Mountain Braves. Location is set at MCC, probably because of the better record for Minot. And this is what I mean, partially what I mean, when I talk about playoff season. There's still more later. So Minot needs an extra game, and if they win it, they get to solidify a spot in the West Region Tourney. All that matters now is the win. This is going to be a playoff-type atmosphere. The crowd's going to have to get loud to cheer on these Majets. And guys, their season is on the line with this one. The mindset of win and they're in. I will post about that later. I do have it retweeted on the Twitter. So tomorrow at 6 at MCC, Majets basketball versus Turtle Mountain. We are lucky enough to get another chance to witness the Majets at home. Guaranteed playoff implications with this one. So good luck to the Majets tomorrow in their play-in game. Speaking of playoff implications, got a final score in the Region 6 tournament. The Velva Aggies take down the Our Redeemers Knights by final score of 39-36. That is it for the Knights in the basketball tournament. While we stick to the topic of playoffs, Wednesdays aren't known for being busy sports days, but today is pretty big. If you're looking at MSU basketball, you'll notice that they start, despite a below 500 record for both squads, they get to start playing in the NSIC tournament starting tonight with your Beavers traveling to South Dakota to face the University of Sioux Falls Cougars. So for the men's team, Minot State, finishing the season with a 4-18 conference record, will face Sioux Falls, leaders of the South Division, with a 17-5 conference record. So clearly a challenge for your Beavers, for the men's team, to open up the NSIC tournament. They are set to tip off at 7:30. And then for the women's, your Beavers finished up with the same record in the conference at 4-18. And the same can be said for Sioux Falls and their men's team at 17-5 record in the conference. So this clearly was all in a determination of the lower seed gets to play the higher seed. You know, kind of like for the NBA, how the 8th seed plays the 1st seed. And because it's the same scenario for both teams, speaking from the perspective of leaders of the NSIC and the NCAA, how they work out these tournaments, kind of mix it up, have the team bottom of the North play top of the South. It's kind of how most brackets work, kind of mix it up that way. Take a look at the state hockey tournament, for example, which I will get more into in a little bit here. When it comes to matchups between once the East and West teams come together, they'll have the first seed from the West face off with the fourth seed from the East, and then vice versa, first East, fourth West, that kind of deal. It's just like this. So just kind of a little perspective for you guys to understand how they work this thing out. But yeah, it is going to be a tough task for Beavers basketball for both teams. Clearly underdogs. But hey, you also got to remember, guys, that the underdogs are usually the ones that are most appreciated. Don't count them out despite all odds against. We will watch them closely, and we will see how they do tonight. So good luck to both the men's and women's Minot State basketball teams facing off with the University of Sioux Falls. More playoff talk. I referenced already the state hockey tournament. Starting tomorrow, the big dance. North Dakota State Hockey, everyone is going to be in Fargo at the Shields Arena, where all the teams that are participating, they're going to set up their motivational signs, logos, or anything else to get the teams motivated. The fans having their backs. They're all going to be placed around the arena. In the Shields Arena, it's pretty nice in there. I haven't been in there yet, but they can make for a good host for the state hockey tournament, as they have been for the past couple years. So state hockey tournament in Fargo. As you guys remember, your Minot High Magicians, with Isaiah Thongfet scoring the game-winning goal against Mandan in overtime in the state qualifier back in Bismarck. That win gives them the third seed from the West. And just like what I was talking earlier about the playoff bracket, 1-4, 2-3, Minot will be facing the second seed from the East. And because of the results that happened in the Eastern Dakota Conference tournament, Minot will be facing Fargo South Shanley in the first round of the state hockey tournament. When it comes to the regular season, Fargo South Shanley finished with 12 wins, 3 losses, and 1 loss past regulation. Overall, they went 18-5-1, whereas Minot went 18-6 overall. But in the West, they grabbed 13 wins and 1 loss. Those were the regular season standings. So Fargo South Shanley and Minot were pretty much similar when it came to the records that were recorded. The kicker to this one is that Fargo South Shanley, they play in a really tough East region. I've referenced once already, or a few times rather, that the East in North Dakota for high school hockey is pretty much a hotbed. With the Fargo Force and UND Fighting Hawks over there, it's pretty popular on that side of the state. So it's no surprise that for some, there are a lot of teams gunning for spots in the state tournament and how close certain matchups were. For Fargo South Shanley, because they got the second seed, they were runner-ups in the East Region tournament, losing to Grand Forks Red River in the East Region Championship. So for the whole bracket itself, from the East, you got Grand Forks Red River at 1, Fargo South Shanley at 2, Grand Forks Central 3, and Fargo Davies at 4. And then from the West, in the region championship, the Bismarck Century Patriots beat the Bismarck High Demons. So Century gets the 1 seed, Bismarck High gets the 2 seed, and then your Minot High Magicians, as I mentioned already, 3. And then the Jamestown Blue Jays get 4. The bracket will go like this. As said already, it is 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. So Century will face Fargo Davies. As I said already, Minot will face Fargo South Shanley. For the other side of the bracket, Grand Forks Red River faces Jamestown. And then Bismarck High versus Grand Forks Central. So there is your bracket for the state tournament. To make sure that we are all on the same page, Minot's game will start at 2:30 tomorrow in Fargo at the Shields Arena. Again, every game is played at the Shields Arena. Don't want to confuse you guys. And what do I think of Shanley, other than that they had similar records on the score sheets? Shanley does play in a tough East, whereas Minot, they can compete with majority of the teams, and they were able to beat the big dogs, that is Bismarck Century and Bismarck High. But is there a distinct difference between these two besides that? So I guess what I think of for this one is that if Minot can compete with these guys, and especially if you're playing an East team, they're going to play with a lot of pace. Like every aspect of the game, they're going to play fast. And so for Minot, I think to have any success in this state tournament, they're going to have to match the pace that these other teams play with. Because like I said, hockey is popular in the East region. They play it well and they play it right. There's a reason Central from Grand Forks is defending state champs for years on end. Well, rather just a few years. Minot has beat them before. Let's not forget about that. But for this first one, we're not playing Central. We are playing Fargo South Shanley. I think for these two, Minot should stay competitive. I mean, no matter what, this is the state tournament. And for Minot to get 3 wins to win it all, they'll need to play their hardest. They need to give 110% effort, match the pace of all the East teams, and possibly, whatever happens, there could be a West matchup in there. It all begins with Fargo South Shanley. Shanley may be another one of those teams that likes to use pace. Minot just needs to continue what they've been doing and bump that up a lot. I'm going to keep preaching, guys. Match that pace, and Minot will have a chance to win. Let's not forget, we don't want to play their game. We want to take the game to them. So with that, Minot versus Fargo South Shanley, 2:30 tomorrow, first round of the state hockey tournament. Good luck, boys. And then the Majets also clinched a spot in the state tournament for the girls' side. They'll be facing off with Fargo North South, who got the 3 seed in the tournament. Looks like they go by 1 through 8 for all teams. They don't go by first 4 in the West, first 4 in the East. Looks like they just go all out for this one. For the girls' tournament, Fargo Davies is 1, facing off with number 8 West Fargo. Devils Lake number 4 versus number 5 Grand Forks Night Riders. Number 2 Bismarck Blizzard versus number 7 Mandan. And then, of course, Minot's game, number 3 Fargo North South and number 6 Minot. Minot's game is set to begin at 7:15 tomorrow. When it comes to girls hockey, they're quite different than the boys' side. For all the teams competing, it's basically a free-for-all, minus a few big players in Fargo Davies and Bismarck. But every other team, Minot should be competitive, at least stay competitive with anyone they'll be facing. And despite that Fargo North-South beat Minot earlier in the season, it wasn't a dominant win for them. Minot kept it close. So Minot, they'll just have to take it to the next level and play harder and better than what they showed out versus Fargo North-South. I'm not saying they played bad against them. It's just kind of one of those, who's going to take this one. And it might just take, a coach's speech or something to motivate the girls. Granted, Minot is the underdogs. This is a matchup that is closer than what people might think about it. And I do believe that is the case. But with that, we will see how both hockey teams do. Again, good luck to both the Magicians and Majettes, both in Fargo for the state hockey tournament for both the boys and girls sides. And my goodness, have we gone a lot with this episode. A quick reminder that the Minot Sports Podcast is a production of KMSU TV and Radio and sponsored by Joshua Strong Photography and MSU Red and Green. I want to thank you guys for the record numbers of viewership on the Instagram stories. You guys mean a lot to me. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you guys so much. That is all on this longer episode of the Minot Sports Podcast. I got some content for you guys. So basically, I wanted to do this today in preparations for tomorrow because I'm going to guess that they'll be broadcasting the Magicians hockey game live on TV. So I want to make time for that. So tomorrow's podcast episode may not be as long, but we shall see what gives. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening to episode 28 of the Minot Sports Podcast. I will talk to you guys later. Get hyped for playoff season. And as always, guys, take care.